Hello everyone and welcome back. If English ever feels confusing, like you hear the words but lose the meaning, stay here. This is where that changes. Take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications. If this helps you think and understand differently, support it with a like and a comment. Stay with me. Don't rush. Just listen, let your brain work, and come back to it again. Now, listen carefully. You're not bad at English, you've just been learning it the wrong way. English is not just a language. It is more like a crowded market where every word is shouting for attention, and half of them do not follow the rules they claim to follow. When you walk into this market, you do not need to understand everything at once. You just need to stay there long enough for your ears to get used to the noise. That is where listening becomes your strongest tool, not because it is easy, but because it slowly trains your brain to stop panicking. When you listen again and again, something strange happens. At first, everything sounds fast and unclear, like people are speaking through water. Then, without warning, your brain begins to catch small pieces. A word here, a phrase there. You do not understand everything, but you understand enough to feel less lost. That feeling matters more than perfect grammar, because confidence grows from understanding, not from memorizing rules. Now, think about how children learn language. They do not sit with grammar books. They listen, they guess, they make mistakes, and they keep going. You are doing the same thing, just with more awareness. That awareness can help you, but it can also slow you down if you try to control everything. So the real skill is learning when to think and when to just listen. English gives you many small surprises. For example, one word can change its meaning depending on the situation. If someone says they are feeling blue, they are not talking about color. If someone says they will drop you a message, they are not dropping anything. Your brain may try to translate these phrases, and it will fail. Good. That failure is useful. It pushes your brain to accept meaning instead of translation. When you stop translating, you start building direct connections. You hear a phrase and understand it immediately without going through your first language. That is the moment when English starts to feel natural. It is not magic. It is just repetition doing its quiet work in the background. There is also rhythm in English, and it is often more important than individual words. Native speakers do not give equal time to every word. They stress some words and almost hide others. This is why listening to clear, natural speech helps more than reading alone. When you read, you see every word equally. When you listen, you hear what really matters. Sometimes you will hear a sentence and think you understood it, but when you try to repeat it, you cannot. That is normal. Understanding and producing language are two different skills. Listening builds the first one. Speaking comes later, often slower than you expect. This delay is not failure, it is preparation. Now let's talk about mistakes. People are afraid of them, which is strange, because mistakes are the only proof that learning is happening. If you never make mistakes, it usually means you are staying in a safe, easy area. Growth does not happen there. Growth happens when you try to say something and it comes out wrong, and then you adjust. English speakers often react with a smile when something sounds unusual. It is not always because they are judging you. Sometimes it just sounds different to their ears. Imagine hearing a sentence in your own language that is slightly off. You would notice it too. So instead of feeling embarrassed, treat that moment as information. Something needs adjusting. That is all. Pronunciation is another area where logic disappears. You may see a word and feel confident about how to say it, and then hear it spoken and realize you were completely wrong. This is not your fault. English spelling and pronunciation are not close friends. They barely talk to each other. The only reliable way to improve pronunciation is to listen and repeat, slowly and carefully. You do not need a perfect accent. You need a clear one. Clarity comes from stress, rhythm, and simple sounds. If people understand you, you are doing it right. Perfection is not the goal. Communication is. There are also small words that carry a lot of meaning. Words like just, quite, even, still. They look simple, but they change the feeling of a sentence. If you ignore them, you miss part of the message. Listening helps you notice how often they appear and how they shape meaning. Another useful habit is to stay with one piece of audio longer than you think you should. Most people listen once, feel confused, and move on. That is like walking into a room, looking around for 2 seconds, and leaving. Stay longer. Listen again. Each time you will hear something new. The same audio becomes easier not because it changed, but because you changed. Your brain needs time to build patterns. It hears similar sentences again and again, and slowly it starts to predict what comes next. This prediction is a sign of progress. It means your brain is no longer reacting only in the moment. It is beginning to understand structure. You may also notice that some days feel easier than others. One day you understand a lot, and the next day everything feels difficult again. This is not a step backwards. Learning is not a straight line. It moves forward, then sideways, then forward again. The important thing is that you keep going. There is something else that helps more than people expect. Interest. If the topic is boring, your brain switches off. If the topic is interesting, your brain stays active. That is why choosing content you enjoy is not a luxury. It is a strategy. When you care about what you are hearing, you listen longer without forcing yourself. Imagine listening to a story instead of a lesson. You follow the characters, the events, the emotions. You do not stop every second to analyze grammar. You stay with the meaning. That is how language becomes alive instead of mechanical. At your level, you do not need to understand every word. You need to understand enough to follow the message. This idea is difficult to accept because it feels like you are missing something. You are, and that is fine. Understanding grows step by step, not all at once. There will be moments when you feel stuck. You listen, but nothing improves. This is usually the moment just before progress. Your brain is working quietly, building connections you cannot see yet. If you stop here, you lose that work. If you continue, something suddenly becomes clear. Consistency matters more than intensity. Listening for a short time every day is more powerful than listening for many hours once a week. Your brain prefers regular contact. It builds habits more easily that way. Try to notice small improvements. Maybe you understand one more sentence than yesterday. Maybe a word sounds familiar instead of strange. These are not small changes. They are signs that your brain is adapting. You are not trying to become perfect. You are trying to become comfortable. Comfortable with not understanding everything. Comfortable with making mistakes. Comfortable with continuing anyway. English may feel chaotic, but it has patterns. You discover those patterns by exposure, not by force. The more you listen, the more those patterns become natural. You stop asking why and start recognizing how. And at some point, without a clear moment you can point to, English stops feeling like a foreign system and starts feeling like a tool you can use. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but effectively. That is the quiet goal behind all of this. Not perfection, not speed. Just steady, real understanding that builds over time, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Keep listening. Keep noticing. Let your brain do its work, even when it seems slow. It is doing more than you think.